Okay, let's go from there. Paper 3. Right, I know that we are talking a lot, but I need to get as much information in your heads before I go, because it is not about the practice anymore from our side. It is now the practice from your side. This is purely how to tackle the paper and what to study. You all with me? Okay, so paper 3. Lovely paper 3. Ladies and gents, make a big fat sign. This one is the one that you work the hardest for. It is the easiest marks that you can score in all of the papers. If you work really hard on improving your sentence structure and your spelling and your punctuation, then you can score really high, even if your topic is really basic. Got it? Right, so from here, okay, let's play a little game. Open on a blank piece of paper. I'm going to show you how creative you are, even if your brain is really tired or you're really bored. Some of you are. Okay, let's go from here. So, this is what I do to refresh my brain just before I go into paper 3. You can even do it the night before or the morning of, when they give you a few minutes of study time or whatever is the case. So quickly for yourself, write down the 3 things you love most in the world. Mine is dancing, food, and gardening. What are your 3? Come on, write them down. Play my game with me. If you just have one, like sleeping, that's also adequate. If you have more, that's fantastic, but you're going to have to narrow it down in the exam, right? Unless you're really cool and you can use all of them. Okay, next one. Below that, write down 2 genres that you love watching, either movie, series, or music that you listen to. Mine is adventure and comedy. So it's going to be a funny adventure. Try to not be dodgy here, please. Just age appropriate, please. I mean, you can write it down, just don't, do it in the final exam. Now, I can almost 100% guarantee that most of you already have a character in your head. Can you see the character that matches your stuff? Mine is definitely some sort of guy with a hat on and running through a jungle. I don't know why, but that's my character. Can you already imagine your character? Just look at your own topic quickly. Your own set of things that you like. Can you imagine a character? Okay. Now here's my advice. All of you enjoy something in life. Use that to write into your essays. Because what we find is, you try to write for us. You try to think, what would the teacher like? It doesn't matter anymore, okay? You're not trying to impress a teacher, you're trying to impress a person that's going to mark your paper, who you are just a number to. So I want you to be as authentically you as you can possibly be in your writing pieces. And draw from the information and the things that you love. I'm not asking you to summarize or memorize, rather, an essay. But here, in front of you, you have 5 things to write on already. Do you see? Hopefully 5, 7, even better. So when you go into your paper 3, know who you are, choose a topic that fits with the things that you like. Because it's going to be a better story. You're going to know the genre that you're writing on better, and guess what's going to be also better? Your mark. All right? It is very important also that you know the styles of essays. Now, you can write any style of essay and you can morph, even if it's an argumentative or seemingly argumentative topic, you can morph it into a narrative essay. There's no rule that says, or no marking guideline that says, it has to be a narrative essay when I have this topic. Right, so please do not let your previous information limit what you can write. Here are the essays you can study or go through. Narrative essay, Descriptive essay, it's not anywhere on your pages. Argumentative or discursive. Steer clear of those. Okay, I've seen in essay marking, those normally score the lowest marks. Right, your narratives score the highest, together with reflective, and that's the next one. Reflective essay, character sketch or persona, and those are the ones that you can do. Right, we expect you to do those. Yes, sir? Perfect essay. I think the highest mark we've ever given was a 49 out of 50. And that is where there were 5 or less spelling, language, grammar errors, and the content from the beginning to the end was well written. Was it an elaborate topic? Not even close. But it was well written and well executed. And what I mean by that is there were paragraphs. I could follow along with what the writer was saying. I could understand the imagery that was used. It was English that was used well. There wasn't any slang or any abbreviations. There weren't any punctuation errors. There were 5 tiny errors. One was a Concord error, one was a spelling error, and I think there were only 2 others that were not really that important. And therefore, we could afford a really, really high mark. Was it perfect? It'll never be. We will always make a mistake. Can we give you 100% for an essay? You betcha. I know, teachers say we can't, but actually in the final exam we can. Okay. Very often, what happens in your essays is you start really well. I don't know, something happens in between ADHD or OCD or I don't know. Something happens in between and you lose the train of thought. Once again, write this down. You have to plan. If you are not spending half of your time for planning, you're not doing this right. Planning is a vital part of fixing the small nuances that we get wrong. Now, things that you need to include. Perfect essay, right? Include idiomatic expressions, but change them so that they are your own. We do not expect you, or we do not want you to use so many idioms that are English that it loses its authenticity, that it becomes a cliche. You're just writing a whole cliche for us. Use the idiom, but change it to your own version of the idiom. Use expressions, use please, use adjectives and adverbs, even in narrative writing. Paint the picture for me. And the one big thing that I always find with my learners is, ladies and gents, please do not expect me to be in your head. I cannot follow your train of thought if you haven't actually written it down on paper. So when you jump from one image to the next one, I need to be able to follow along. So write down the obvious things. Write down the basics for me of your idea or your storyline. Whatever you're doing, write it down. Whatever you're thinking, write it down, and then fix it. Just because you're using an image doesn't mean I know what that image means. Now let's talk about how you handle the topics. Yes, I am encouraging you to be yourself, but there is a list of taboo topics that will give you a low content mark. And it's very important that you do not write on these topics. Now you're going to ask or say, yeah, but I want to be authentic and that's authentically me. I'm so glad, but I want to squeeze out the most marks out of this paper that we could possibly do, yes? And that's the aim here. Be yourself in the rest of the world, but here be a reserved self version of what you are. Write on the topic you know. So here's the taboo list. Do you want it? Here it comes. You cannot write about sex. Sorry. Nothing to do about sex, anything positive or negative. Yes, I know, I said the word. Dun, dun, dun. You cannot write about cannibalism, specifically about you eating other people or plotting to eat other people. You cannot talk about gory details of death, murder, plotting to murder. Please don't write me an essay about plotting to murder your stepmother. It's not going to go down well, okay? Why am I saying this? Ladies and gents, you are writing for a conservative group of people. They are affording the marks. You do not know in which headspace they are in at that moment. Yes, I know it sounds unfair, but this is life. Welcome to it. You have to be within those parameters. Do not talk about using drugs. Do not talk about using alcohol. Do not be at a party having drugs, alcohol, and sex. I mean, then you cannot expect to get a good mark for that essay. You cannot also tell me about observing something that you should not have observed. Stay within the parameters that you have to work in as a learner that is still in school. I'm not asking you to make it butterflies and cupcakes, although cupcakes could have a double meaning. Anyway, moving on from there. What I'm asking you to do is, if you need to mention something, be as vague as possible. You can say something like, a euphemistic expression, for example, and James knew that she had passed away when he just saw her feet lying lifeless around the corner. Did I tell you she was stabbed 600 times and her chest cavity was open and blood was spewing out everywhere? No, I have not done that, yes? But I've hinted at it. Do you have me? You can use the same information, use different words, and get the same results, or even better. Got it? Very important here, you have to follow a structure. Your story has to have a rise and climax or a rise in tension. It does not have to end. But please, I'm praying, please, begging actually, do not end like this. And then I woke up. Right, ladies and gents, that is not authentic writing. Almost 20% of people that will write this will end like that. And that becomes a cliche. You cannot end like that. Some people love to just pull it a little bit further. They say, and then I woke up and I realized that someone was standing out my window. I'm so glad, but you still woke up after your dream. Right? Why not just end it? And then I fell off the cliff and ended there. Much better ending. Literally ends on a cliffhanger. Except you're not hanging, you're dying on the other side. Okay, let's talk about the language usage. Sentence structure, how you tackle this piece is very important. Please write there, the very first verb that I use in the very first sentence, that dictates what tense I am in. If I start with simple present tense, the rest of my essay normally has to be in simple present tense. If I'm writing narratively or reflectively, please write there, add direct speech. You have to add direct speech when it's a narrative writing, because how do we get to know characters? Through what they say. And here's a little secret, in your direct speech, they can say gonna and wanna. Nowhere else in your essay. All right. You can use colloquial language when you're using your direct speech, because then we get to know the character a little bit better. Can I use swear words? Nope, not even in direct speech. Not even if I put a little at and something, no. You cannot do that anywhere in your writing. So no bad language, please. Okay. I'm just going to talk about part number 2 there. We find this very often. You cannot go on a tangent and start preaching to us. You must. People should think for themselves. Okay? I'm so glad. You can't use that. You cannot preach to the writer. If you are reflecting on something, it means that you have learned something. So talk about what you have learned and what you have realized. Do not at any stage make it a you must situation. Right, from there, okay, I've talked about the nuances as well here. When we look at our writing, you have to have an idea of where you're going. What I normally do when I've done my planning, I create a little plot for myself. If you're writing a narrative essay or descriptive essay, make a note. Start in the middle of your action. Do not start at the beginning, because that is going to afford you very low marks. Do not start with once upon a time. Okay, I hope none of you are still doing this in grade 12. And that is it for essays. Let's talk about contextuals. For home language, you will write 2 long transactional pieces. For first additional, a long transactional and a short transactional piece. What is important? How do we score high marks? By the way, you can get 25 out of 25 for each of these pieces. It happens. If you concentrate, you can do it. Firstly, you must know the layout out of your head for each and every piece that you are writing. You cannot go into this exam and wing it. You can't guess what a letter looks like. You need to know what it looks like. You need to know what an obituary is. You need to know what a CV looks like, because we are going to give you options. In section A, there will be most likely 7 options plus 2, 3, or 4 pictures. Read carefully. More so in section B. Section A, you can still wing the topic and you can bring it in at any stage in your essay. But for section B, and I'm warning you now, we do this. If the topic or the type of writing piece is easy, like a letter, we make the topic more difficult. Okay, take note. If it is a more difficult writing piece like an obituary or a CV, we make the topic slightly easier. Right? And the things that score low, speeches. The formal speech and the dialogue. Why? Because we think we can do it, right? So we don't study for that, we just do it on the day. So make a note, steer clear of your speeches. Unless you are a public speaker and you know how to do a speech, steer clear. The easiest ones, an obituary scores the highest mark out of all of them. You don't know why? Probably because you study them. It has a set format. Then second to that is your letter of complaint. Write that down because you can score high with that. For the first additional, your friendly letters and your emails score the highest because the structure does not change. And ladies and gents, we will not ask the same topic more than once. Yes, love?
What are the common mistakes in the dialogue?
The common mistakes is that you do not align the speakers. Your content is very thin. For example, have you ever started like this? Hi, how are you? I'm well, thank you. How was your day? Yes, we've all done that. Please, that entire part, delete it. Start with the action part. Because your content mark suffers because we have one-liners. So in your dialogue, do the following. Ensure that in your dialogue, you have at least 2 to 3 lines per person, per speech action or part that they talk. Right? Do you all hear? So have 2 or 3 lines of them asking or saying something. Hi ma'am, how are you? How was your day yesterday? I have a favor to ask. Then go to the teacher. Hi Tandeka, no, my day was good. What do you want? Right? Do we include any action, facial expressions, stage directions in a dialogue? No. Please write that down, because we end up having rolling eyes. Please don't roll your eyes. It is a dialogue, not stage directions. I'm not in a play, don't tell me how to roll my eyes. We are going to use punctuation there. By the way, should you add that in brackets, then we ignore it as your word count, and then you might be under the word count. Okay. In your dialogue, do not include an introduction. Don't tell me where I am and what has happened. It's in the topic. I know how to read, otherwise I won't be doing the job, yes? Let's go through, all right, the speech. What is very important if you should attempt a speech, because you're like, this woman doesn't know what I know, I can do this. Sure, do the speech. Please include facial expressions and pauses. Right? You can write that into brackets, and that's part of your word count. When we look at a friendly letter, remember the order of your address. It has to be street number first. Now, for those of you who are Afrikaans, that will go to the end of your street name. In English, for everyone, the number is first, then the street name, I don't know, flower, and then the space, and then the type of street, both of them have been capitalized. So either street, drive, avenue. Write a big fat note for transactionals. Do not abbreviate anything. Not street, don't write STR, str. Don't write that. It has to be the full word, please. Below the street, you're going to have your city, town, or suburb, depending on what we've asked you to do, then your postal code, and then the date. On the next line, you're going to say hi by using dear so-and-so. Very important with your formal letters, you're going to have the sender's address also on the left before you start your letter. And please make this note, because for some odd reason, either this is not being taught or you forget. You have to, in a formal letter, give me a subject line. Tell me what the letter is about. Complaint about Nike t-shirt. Right? And because it's a sentence, you're going to put a full stop there. And you're going to underline it. So if you haven't been taught this, write it down. Skip a line and then you start. When we write about letters of complaints or compliments, ensure that you have a variety of things that you're mentioning. The biggest problem I find with transactionals when marking it is that the content is really being taken literal. When you look at your topic and write this down for yourself, discuss that plus one or two things extra. If you're complaining about a restaurant that, I don't know, served you flies in your soup, then discuss more than one thing. Don't just write the letter and say, I'm so disappointed that, I don't know where, mug and bean? Okay, let's call it mug and cup, because otherwise, you know, defamation of character. If I'm talking about mug and cup and there was a fly in my soup, then I'm going to say, firstly, a compliment. I'm going to say, it's such a wonderful company, we've always supported it, we love your service, but, and then in your second and third paragraph, you're going to discuss not only the fly in the soup, but something else. Maybe the waiter was rude to you when you mentioned or showed it the flying object in your soup. Maybe the manager didn't handle the situation right. Maybe you were overcharged. Whatever is the case, I need to have more than one thing that is discussed here for your content mark to be high. And then please don't lose focus to the end of your letters. You have to have a signage. Sign the damn thing, please. The only letter that's different is the letter to the editor or letter to the press. Make a big fat note there, please. If you are writing a letter to the editor or letter to the press, your address, the sender's address, will appear at the bottom of the letter below the signage. Got it? The rest of the letters all the same, but the letter to the press, the signage at the bottom. And if you're using a pseudonym, please know how to spell the word pseudonym. Right. Any other writing pieces that you're unsure about? The obituary has a very standard layout. Please remember the date from when they lived to when they died. Please remember in memoriam, the words in memoriam of the person and the date. Remember to mention all the information in order, where they were born, where they were raised, what school they attended, then their achievements. Talk about the impact that they had on the community or the world. And remember, you're making this up. And then finally, where are they being laid to rest? Is there a service? Are we offering anything in lieu of flowers instead of flowers? And then end with a quote that would fit that person. Right, any other writing pieces that you want to quickly run through that you're unsure about? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Come on, now's your chance to ask anything that you're unsure about. And get a marker's opinion or advice here. Yes, sir?
Planning, do you need to do like mind maps?
Right, you have two options there. You have to do planning for all your pieces. And when I talk about planning, it has to be elaborate, right? Just concentrate this last few minutes. You have to please either do a mind map and a draft, or just a mind map, or just a draft. Got it? If you have the capability of writing a draft and editing, go for it. Most people don't. Then you stick to a mind map. And that's all we need. We don't need more than a mind map for you to get afforded those marks. Anything else? Anything about any of your papers? Paper 1, paper 2, paper 3. Did you get any wiser? Just bored. Right, if you turn to your question papers, go to question paper 1, please. Turn to page 2. Look at the instruction page quickly. Turn to paper number 2 as well, also to the instruction page, please. And put them next to each other quickly. Do you notice the difference? Paper 2 is quite intricate, right? The reason for that is what I'd like you to do even before you start. Paper 1 is straightforward. The instructions aren't different from what you know from school. But I wanted you to see the actual paper because some of you have been writing internal papers, yes? And they might not have followed the same structure as what you have here. But if you look at paper 2, for example, you'll notice that there's a whole set of things you haven't done this year because you don't need to. When you have decided in paper 2 which sections you want to do, which poems you want to answer, whether you're doing the essay or the contextual questions for whichever section, I want you to take your highlighter and highlight these sections. Because I want you to tick them off as you run through the paper and as you complete them. Why? Ladies and gents, when we work systematically and in order, our brains can function optimally. It's when we try to answer and think about all the possible answers for the entire paper that the wheels come off. And you know when you've sat in the exam and went blank, like brain dead? This is why. Because you're overcompensating there. You only have to do one question at a time. And for all of the papers, you can answer this in any order that you want. Right? So please don't start at question 1 if you're uncomfortable with it and work your way through the paper. As long as you do one question completely and fully, you can answer in any order. Right, last chance to ask me anything. Are you also very, very secure in English that you have no questions at all? Right, that's it. Thank you, ladies and gents. I hope that helped a little bit to just clarify some information. Have a wonderful day today.